Yo, what is going on, COD Familia? It is your boy BN, aka Mr. Kingdom Builder, and today I thought it would be awesome for us to take a look at if there's any updated numbers for what are the kingdom power thresholds in order to go from crowded to full. So if you're wondering what season you're in, how strong does my kingdom need to be in order for me to then hit full status, where I would only then be able to take in special immigration players, we're going to be going through each season. What are the thresholds looking like? What does it look like if you're getting close to full, if you're crowded? And hopefully just giving you some good information that you can use depending on when your kingdom hits a particular season, especially if you're looking to try to maximize the amount of players that you want to get into your kingdom, whether that's being able to accept half an alliance, a full alliance, maybe an alliance and a half, especially given that we've gone from 300 slots down to 150 slots now per season. So as always, if you enjoy the content, make sure you throw us up because it helps out a lot. So let's go ahead and we're going to start with season one. Well, actually, let's start with defining what are the factors that go into determining kingdom migration status. Now, this is something that you'll be able to view if you go on to whatever my thing. Oops, here, hang on, there we go. So whenever you're able to go in and you get here to the server overview page, you will go up here to rules, you go to seasons, and then you're going to scroll down here to where it says requirements. And they did update this, which is nice. They give you a little bit more of a breakdown. So a server's total influence, and if anyone's curious on this as well, before they ended up making this adjustment, if we go all the way back to a time when they had initially announced what these factors would be, this was actually back, and we'll show you this now, this was back in January. So in January of 2024, they initially came out with kingdom activity status factors, and they essentially said that it's individual player influence determined by current power, power growth, merits, hero stars, heroes awakened, artifact level, legion count, and war pet skills. Obviously, we know that that has changed at this point to essentially what we're looking at now, which is a server's total influence is determined by the personal influence of its players. A player's personal influence score is a reflection of the development of their heroes, artifacts, legions, buildings, and tech. And then it gives you a little bit of a breakdown, right? It says legions being healed in your herbalist hut count towards legion power for the purposes of calculating personal influence, meaning that even if your troops aren't healed, they're still going to count. Artifacts are included in calculating personal influence regardless of whether they're equipped or not. Same thing with war pets. They factor whether they're equipped or not. And then we have dead units in the ossuary does not affect your personal influence whether you have claimed them or not. So that's interesting. What this means is that the number of dead units. Now, the interesting thing about the ossuary is that obviously, with the way that migration works, if your kingdom is in a KVK, right, you can still have people leave the KVK, but you need to be in pre-war in order for people to actually join the kingdom, right? So you can leave a kingdom, but you can't join a kingdom that's in KVK. So you have to join within that migration phase. The challenge part here is that does the ossuary continue to impact the migration window once that phase comes around near the end of the KVK? This would make it seem as though it does, based on the wording. Players with low power are not included when calculating a server's total influence. Now, it would be nice if they actually added what those low powers were, and if they wanted to do that per season, that would be nice, but I think that's an opportunity to add something here. Players with high power who have been inactive for a long period of time are also not included. Servers are designated as full in order to ensure that their total influence remains within reasonable limits. This also prevents servers from becoming excessively powerful, leading to situations where servers are overcrowded and potential matchmaking imbalances in future seasons. Now, on this part here where it says players who are high power and have been inactive for a long time are not included. Now, we know what those numbers lists are, and we'll show you that briefly before we get on to the big mama jama. But this is on the FAQ page for the official COD Discord. But I'll just show this to you quick. I think we showed it in a previous video too as well. But it basically just says here that if a player has not logged in for a certain period of time, they basically, that player will be removed from the map. I also got this confirmed by COD CS. I had reached out and asked, and they essentially confirmed the same thing, which is that and these are the levels. So if you're level 1, it's 5 hours. If you're level 2 to 4, it's 8 hours. 5 to 7, 24 hours. 8 to 9, 2 days. 10 to 14, 3 days. 15 to 19, 20 days. Level 20, 25 days. And then level 21 to 25 is 30 days. So if you fall into that window and you're inactive for that period of time or longer, your city will be removed from the map. And then once you log back in, your city will come back. Which is nice to know because it means that the bot scans that we've been doing for all the kingdom, when we look at like the CH16 plus lords, those scans basically mean those are the current accounts that are still active in that moment. So it really makes the data feel a lot more accurate now knowing that. Anyways, with all that being said, let's dive in. So we're going to start with season 1. And I think this is season 2. It is. So this is your season 1 group. And again, this data was pulled on the 7th. So this is about 2 days ago. And we have here that you can see it's very clearly defined. Here's crowded, and then it goes to full. There's not this in between where you see like a full over here and a crowded in between the fulls. You can see that the line between these two kingdoms is basically 2.4 billion, right? If you're just kind of averaging, give or take. Meaning that once you hit around 2.4 billion is when you're going to go to full season 1. Now, keep in mind, this is season 1. This is a season 1 kingdom that is going into pre-war. So if you are finishing season 1 and you're going into pre-war before season 2 starts, that's where this threshold's important, at least when it pertains to migration. Then we end up going into season 2. Now, season 2 is once again a little bit more clearly defined too as well. If we look at this, here's our season 2 grouping. Very clearly defined, right? You can see there's crowded, there's full. The in-between is basically right here. This is 4.3, this is 4.55. What you could say 4.4, right? Maybe it's 4.4, 4.5 billion. But then that's where you would be going from crowded to full. And so if you're finishing season 2 and then you go into pre-war, which means that you're then going to be going into pre-strife next, this would be your threshold, right, for hitting full. Then we get to pre-strife. This is where it starts getting the first moment of where it starts getting interesting. It gets even more interesting once we get to Season of Strife. But pre-strife, now you are finishing pre-strife and you are getting into pre-war before Season 2, and you see it now it's a little bit more convoluted, where we have essentially kind of a crowded line that is getting its first moment of a full status transition from 6.7 billion to 6.78 billion. However, then you get a big jump to 7.37, and then you get 7.38, and it goes from full to crowded. Now, this, to me, just doesn't make sense. It would be nice if there was either an explanation on how you can have crowded kingdoms that are stronger than full status kingdoms. Now, maybe it's that they're not fully healed. But if that's the case and we're making that argument, then these kingdoms would only be stronger at that point once they are. And so, to me, if you have a full status kingdom at 6.78, to me, the threshold should be like 6.75 billion at that point, right, and above. But then you look at these ones and you're like, okay, well, is it maybe 8? Is it 7.8, 7.9, 8 billion? Is it somewhere in that range where then it's going? So, for me, either A, I would love a little bit more of a detailed explanation on why it is that some of these kingdoms can potentially be crowded. Now, okay, are they maybe killing off troops? Could it be the influence factors that are going in there? But again, there's nothing that really talks about inactivity in those that were mentioned. So it's either that or 2, I would just like for things to be a little bit more clearly defined. Like, here's the line, and then if you go above the line, you go full, right? And it's just so crystal clear. Because now, once we get to Season of Strife, it's going to get a little bit more unfortunate. So now we'll be taking a look. Well, basically all this is Season of Strife at this point, but you'll see here right now the numbers go up pretty high. Like, you're talking 2.4, and then it's what, 4.4, and then it's 8 or 7.8, and then now we're getting the first full status at 17. Like, that's a huge jump, right? That's more than double from pre-strife to Season of Strife. So it's almost like you would think the thresholds would be a little bit more adapted or appropriate, if you will, to where, you know, maybe if they're going to do a doubling thing, maybe it's like 2.5, then it's 5, then it's 10, then it's 20, right? Like something like that could maybe make sense, unless they're going to have an equal number throughout. It's just, you know, and obviously you're going to be in Season of Strife longer at that point, so maybe it makes a little bit more sense for that to be higher, so maybe you would do a doubling principle. But just again, it would just be nice if it was a little more clear to me. However, we see here at 259, Kingdom 259 is at 17.18 billion, but then you have 17.18 billion, and they're only separated by what, 50,000 points? 50,000 power at this time? But you have one crowded and one full? That part doesn't make any sense to me. And then you have this next one, which is at 17.32, and 17.22, then 17.33. I mean, again, this is separated by what, 8 million power, and it's full crowded. And then you get another full that's up here at 18, but a bunch of crowdeds around that. And then you get the first maybe consistent strip or streak of here between 56, 140, 218, 7, where you're seeing this group at 19.820. So you're thinking, okay, well, maybe the threshold's 20. Like, that could maybe make sense if you only saw those 4 kingdoms. And then it goes into a crowded again. So that, and then let's go to the top. And that part just doesn't really make a lot of sense. Okay, so now we see another crowded strip, but then we see the next big full break, which is here at 21.822, which we kind of have always known, you know, the threshold has been around 22 billion. So when you see this, this obviously makes sense visually. But what doesn't make sense is that then you see Kingdom 96 and they're crowded at 26.07 billion. So it's just, like, that's wild to me. And like I said, it would be nice if either A, there was just a little bit more explanation on how this can happen. And again, maybe it's obvious to some people. I do think there's some reasons on why this could, but it would just be nice to have a little bit of a clearly defined explanation. Or 2, like I said, just have a very clear line drawn in the sand on this is what the numbers are. So anyways, that basically sums up where we're at. Again, this is not any kind of like updated, and we're going off top 300 because that is most likely what they're using to define kingdom power as to factor into KVK matchmaking. So this is hopefully a lot more accurate when it comes to especially what we're seeing for the migration statuses. And we'll probably do another one of these when the main or the frontrunner group comes out of Season of Strife for the first group that went in, and then it hits their migration window. So we might do another pool like this maybe the day before, and then see how it looks and if anything's changed, right? Maybe. But yeah, there's a lot to take in here. So again, I hope you guys enjoy, and let me know what you think in the comments down below. With that being said, that's it for me. As always, until next time, we'll catch you later.